When I found a wrapped Rolex watch in our bedroom with a note saying, "For my only one," I didn't yet understand that my life would shatter faster than I could say her name. My name was Hector, and I had been teaching economics at Shreveport University for 10 years. My wife Sharon worked as a call center operator, and we had been together for 15 years. We had 2 children, 12-year-old Emma and 10-year-old Ethan. We seemed like an ordinary middle-class American family with a house in a quiet neighborhood. I found that watch by accident while looking for my belt in her closet. The box was stuffed deep behind a stack of sweaters. My heart stopped. The card had only a name written on it, Kristian. We didn't know any Kristian. At least, that's what I thought. The next 3 days I pretended nothing had happened. Sharon behaved completely naturally, cooked dinner, helped the kids with homework, kissed me goodnight. But I could no longer look at her the same way. Every smile seemed fake, every word a lie. On Friday, she said she was going to a party at her colleague Jennifer's place. Something about a birthday celebration by the pool. I nodded, smiled, and told her to have fun. But I already had a plan. I asked our neighbor Barbara to watch the kids under the pretext of an unexpected faculty meeting. An hour after Sharon left, I got in my car and followed. The address she left turned out to be real. It was indeed a house with a pool where a party was happening. I parked a few houses down and started waiting. The first hour passed slowly. I watched people coming and going, heard music and laughter. But Sharon didn't come out. The second hour was worse. I was beginning to doubt whether this was all just paranoia. Maybe the watch was a gift for someone else. Maybe I misunderstood everything. And then around 11 at night, she came out. Not alone. Next to her was a tall man in a white shirt. They were holding hands. He wrapped his arm around her waist, pulled her close, and kissed her. Not a quick goodbye kiss, long, passionate. I almost threw up, but I kept watching. The man walked her to her car, kissed her again, and waved goodbye. Sharon got behind the wheel and drove home. I waited another 5 minutes, then approached the house. The party was still going. I went inside, pretending to be a lost guest, and started asking around. The party hostess turned out to be very talkative after a few martinis. "Oh, you mean Kristian?" she laughed. "Such a sweet guy. Pharmacist at the Central Drugstore. He and Sharon met on the street a few months ago. She lost her wallet, he helped her find it. Romantic, right?" I thanked her and left quickly. My heart was beating so loudly it seemed everyone around could hear it. A few months? How many exactly? The next morning I started taking action. First, I hired a private detective, an experienced man named Marcus who specialized in marital cases. His prices were high, but he promised results. And he didn't disappoint. Within 2 weeks, he compiled a dossier that broke my heart. Photographs, video recordings, phone call transcripts. Sharon had been seeing Kristian for at least 4 months. But the biggest blow was still ahead. One morning Sharon told me she needed to talk. We sat at the kitchen table, and she took my hand. Tears stood in her eyes. "Hector, I'm pregnant," she whispered. My world stopped. We weren't planning more children. Last year I had even thought about getting a vasectomy. And suddenly, "That's wonderful," I forced out, though everything inside was screaming. "Is this my child? Or his?" Sharon smiled through her tears and hugged me. And I already knew what I had to do next. I contacted Marcus again. "I need to know for sure. Whose child is this?" I told him. He nodded and returned a week later with information that finally confirmed everything. Sharon had scheduled an appointment at a private clinic for a paternity test. But not for me. For Kristian. The test showed the child was his. Now I could act. But I didn't want a simple divorce. I wanted justice. I wanted her to understand what she had lost. Over the next months, I played the perfect husband. Went with her to doctor's appointments, bought prenatal vitamins, planned the nursery. Meanwhile, I quietly transferred all our joint savings to an offshore account that Sharon didn't know about. This was money I had inherited from my grandfather. Technically it was my personal property, but we had always considered it family money. About $200,000. I also contacted the best divorce attorney in Shreveport, a woman named Regina Turner who had a reputation as a shark. She analyzed my case and smiled. "In Louisiana, adultery matters in property distribution," she said. "With evidence like this, you'll get everything. The house, the cars, custody of the children. Everything." When Sharon was in her 7th month of pregnancy, I finally made my move. But not the way she expected. I organized a big dinner at home. Invited her parents, my parents, our close friends. Said it was a celebration of the future baby. Sharon was happy and excited. She even bought a new dress. When everyone gathered at the table, I stood up with a glass in my hand. "I want to make a toast," I began. "To 15 years of marriage. To our wonderful children Emma and Ethan. And to the new baby who will soon arrive." Everyone raised their glasses. Sharon was smiling, though I could see slight anxiety in her eyes. "But I also want to be honest," I continued. "This baby isn't mine." Dead silence fell. A glass fell from my mother-in-law's hands and shattered on the floor. "This baby belongs to a man named Kristian, a pharmacist from the central drugstore. A man my wife has been seeing for the past 8 months." Sharon went pale. "Hector, what are you?" I pulled out a folder and dumped photographs on the table. Everyone could see. Kristian and Sharon by the pool. Kristian and Sharon at a cafe. Kristian and Sharon kissing by his car. "I have video recordings too, if anyone's interested," I added calmly. Sharon's mother started crying. Her father jumped up from his seat. My parents just sat there stunned. Friends didn't know where to look. "I've already filed for divorce," I said. "My lawyer has all the evidence. According to Louisiana law, in case of proven adultery, the innocent party has the right to a larger share of marital property. I'll get our house. Both cars. Custody of Emma and Ethan." "You can't," Sharon whispered. "That's my house too." "I can," I replied. "And I will. And I also want everyone here to know the truth. So you can't tell your version of the story." The party ended in disaster. Sharon's parents left without saying goodbye to her. My parents hugged me and promised their support. Friends dispersed in complete silence. Sharon tried to talk to me that night. Cried, begged, promised she would explain everything. But I went to sleep in the guest room and locked the door. The following months were hell. Court hearings, meetings with lawyers, conversations with the children. Emma and Ethan didn't understand why Mom did this. I tried not to turn them against her, but the truth spoke for itself. The funniest thing was that Kristian disappeared immediately after learning about the divorce. He didn't answer Sharon's calls, changed his phone number, even quit his job at the pharmacy. He didn't want responsibility, didn't want the child, only wanted the fun. Sharon gave birth to a boy in May. She named him Liam. I didn't go to the hospital, didn't want to see the child who destroyed my life. The court decision was issued in July. As Regina promised, I got almost everything. The house was valued at $350,000, now it was mine. Both cars mine. Primary custody of Emma and Ethan mine. Sharon had the right to see them every other weekend and one evening a week. She didn't receive alimony. The judge took the adultery into account and decided she had no right to my financial support. She had to pay symbolic child support for Emma and Ethan, but the amounts were minimal. And the money in the offshore account, nobody knew about it. $200,000 remained mine and didn't have to be divided. Sharon moved to a small apartment on the outskirts of Shreveport. Returned to work at the call center after maternity leave. Liam grew up without a father. Kristian never appeared. She tried to find him through court, but he had moved to another state and vanished. A year passed. Then two. Life settled down. Emma and Ethan got used to the new reality. We traveled together, went hiking, spent time together. I started dating a colleague from the university, a smart woman named Melissa. She was kind to my children and wasn't rushing into a serious relationship. Sharon called sometimes. Not about the kids, about us. Said she still loved me. That it was a mistake. That Kristian meant nothing to her. But I wasn't listening anymore. Trust was gone forever, and without it, love is just an empty word. The scariest thing is that I really believe she did love me. Even when she was cheating, she just needed more than that love. She needed emotions, adrenaline, the feeling of novelty. And I gave her stability, security, family. Turned out, that wasn't enough. Kristian was just an escape from routine. A game that got out of control. He didn't love her, he used her. And when everything was revealed, he ran away like a coward. And now Sharon was left alone with the consequences of her decisions. With a child she's raising alone. With rare meetings with Emma and Ethan, who ask why she destroyed our family. With a small apartment instead of a big house. With lonely evenings instead of family dinners. Sometimes I almost regret how brutally I did everything. But then I remember that day when I found the Rolex watch. I remember how she lied to my face month after month. How she planned to pass off his child as mine. And the regret disappears. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. Nuclear, total justice that swept away everything she had built over the years. And I don't feel guilty. Because when you destroy someone's life with your actions, you can't expect forgiveness. Can't expect mercy. You can only expect what you sow: pain, disappointment, and loneliness. And life has a peculiar way of returning everything like a boomerang. Sharon wanted passion with Kristian, got loneliness with Liam. Wanted an escape from routine, got routine without support. Wanted a new life, got fragments of the old one. And the worst thing for her is that Kristian never came back. She was left with someone who didn't love her, in the form of a child who reminds her of him every day. This punishment is worse than any court decision. This punishment will last a lifetime. And me? I'm finally free. Free from lies, from betrayal, from false promises. With children who love me. With a house that's now truly mine. With a future I'm building on my own terms. Sometimes revenge isn't an emotional outburst. It's cold calculation. It's a chess game where you see 10 moves ahead. And when you win, victory is sweeter than any apology. But let me tell you more about what happened after that fateful dinner party. Because the real story of revenge doesn't end with one dramatic moment. It unfolds slowly, methodically, over months and years. The day after I exposed Sharon's affair in front of everyone, she didn't leave the bedroom. I could hear her crying through the door, making phone calls that went unanswered. Kristian had already blocked her number. Her friends, the ones who had been at the dinner, weren't picking up either. She was suddenly alone, and the weight of that loneliness was crushing her. I took Emma and Ethan to my parents' house that weekend. They needed to be away from the chaos, and I needed to think clearly about my next steps. My mother held me for a long time when we arrived, not saying anything, just being there. My father took the kids to get ice cream, giving them a semblance of normalcy in the midst of the storm. "I'm proud of you," my mother finally said. "What she did, no one deserves that." Sharon gave birth to Liam 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized. She called me from the hospital, maybe out of habit, maybe because she had no one else to call. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Seeing her give birth to another man's child would have broken something in me that was barely holding together. My mother went to the hospital instead. She took flowers and a card. When she came back, she said Sharon looked tired and alone, that the baby was healthy but Sharon kept crying. I felt sorry for her, my mother admitted. Even after everything, I felt sorry for her. I did too in moments when I let my guard down. But pity wasn't enough to undo the damage. It wasn't enough to rebuild trust. It was just a hollow emotion that reminded me of the person Sharon used to be before she made her choices. Emma and Ethan met their half-brother a month later during one of their visitation weekends. Emma sent me a text. "He's cute. Doesn't look like Mom or Kristian. Just looks like a baby." Ethan's text was simpler. "Miss you, Dad. Coming home tomorrow?" Their words reminded me why I had fought so hard. Not for revenge, not even for justice, but for them. To give them stability when everything else was falling apart. To be the constant in their lives when one parent had proven unreliable. Months turned into a year. The pain dulled but never disappeared completely. It became background noise, something I had learned to live with like tinnitus or a chronic ache. I started dating Melissa during this time. She was different from Sharon, quieter, more thoughtful, less impulsive. She understood what I had been through, because she had her own story of betrayal. Her ex-husband had left her for his personal trainer, taking half their savings and their dog. "We're part of the same sad club," she joked on our third date. Survivors of infidelity. But being with her felt different. Lighter. There were no secrets between us, no hidden phones or mysterious receipts. Just honesty and slow-building trust. Emma liked her. Ethan was more reserved, still loyal to the idea of his parents getting back together despite everything. I didn't push it. I let him process things at his own pace, in his own way. Sharon continued to struggle. Her parents had cut her off financially after the truth came out. Her father, a strict Baptist deacon, couldn't reconcile his daughter's actions with his faith. Her mother called me once, apologizing for Sharon's behavior, saying she didn't raise her daughter to be like this. "I know," I told her. "You did your best." Sharon's apartment was in a rough neighborhood. She worked long hours at the call center to make ends meet, relying on her few remaining friends for childcare. Liam was colicky, according to mutual acquaintances, crying through the nights, making Sharon's already difficult life even harder. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. This was the revenge I had orchestrated, watching her struggle while I thrived. But triumph felt hollow when I saw the toll it was taking on Emma and Ethan. They loved their mother despite her mistakes, and watching her suffer hurt them too. The 2-year anniversary of the divorce came and went. I was in a better place by then. The house felt like home again, no longer haunted by memories of betrayal. I had repainted the bedroom, replaced the furniture, erased as much of Sharon's presence as I could. Emma was doing well in school. She had joined the debate team and discovered a talent for public speaking. Ethan had found his passion in art, spending hours drawing and painting. They were healing, slowly but surely. Melissa and I had grown closer. We hadn't moved in together. It was too soon, and the kids needed stability, but we talked about the future in concrete terms. Marriage, maybe. A blended family. Second chances. Sharon sent me an email on what would have been our 17th anniversary. It was long, rambling, full of regrets and apologies. She talked about how much she missed our family, how every day she woke up regretting her choices, how Liam would never know his real father because Kristian had completely disappeared. She ended with a question. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Not for us to get back together. Just for peace. For closure. I thought about it for days. Forgiveness felt like the right thing to do, the mature thing. But every time I tried to form the words, I remembered finding that Rolex. I remembered the lies, the deception, the planning it must have taken to maintain an affair for 8 months. I wrote back eventually. I forgive you for what you did to me, but I can't forgive you for what you did to Emma and Ethan. They didn't deserve to have their family torn apart. That's something you'll have to live with. Her response came immediately. I know. I live with it every day. And that, I realized, was the real punishment. Not the loss of the house or the cars or the money. Not the social ostracism or the financial struggles. It was the knowledge that she had destroyed something good, something real, for a fantasy that evaporated the moment it was exposed to daylight. Kristian never resurfaced. Marcus kept tabs on him for a while. He had moved to Oklahoma, was working at another pharmacy, had probably found new targets. His ex-girlfriend from Bossier City had gone on to marry someone else, a detail I learned from her Christmas card thanking me again for the truth. The offshore account remained my secret. $200,000, untouched, earning interest. I thought about telling Melissa about it, but something held me back. It felt like insurance, a safety net in case everything fell apart again. Trust, once broken, is hard to fully rebuild, even with someone new. Life moved forward, because that's what life does. The dramatic moments fade, replaced by mundane routines and small victories. Emma's debate tournaments. Ethan's art shows. Melissa's promotion at the university. Liam's first birthday, which I heard about secondhand because I wasn't invited. Sharon and I developed a functional co-parenting relationship. We communicated through text, kept conversations brief, and focused on the kids. She never missed a visitation, never was late with her minimal child support payments. She was trying, in her own damaged way, to be a good mother to all 3 of her children. I saw her once at Ethan's school play. She sat alone in the back row while I sat with Melissa and my parents. She looked older, tired, worn down by single motherhood and regret. When our eyes met, she gave me a small, sad smile. I nodded back. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. We had both survived the wreckage of our marriage, just in very different ways. The true measure of my revenge wasn't in the dramatic dinner party reveal, or the court victories, or the offshore account. It was in this: I was happy, genuinely happy. I had built a new life from the ruins of the old one. I had my children, a good job, a loving relationship with Melissa, and most importantly, peace. Sharon had none of those things. She had consequences. She had regrets. She had a son who would one day ask about his father, and she would have to explain how she destroyed a family for a man who didn't even care enough to stick around. That was the real revenge. Not dramatic, not explosive, but permanent. Every day she woke up, she had to face what she had lost. Every day she struggled to make ends meet, while I lived comfortably in the house we had built together. Every day she saw Emma and Ethan for limited hours while I got to tuck them in at night, help with homework, be there for all the small, important moments. Some people might call it cruel, but I called it justice. She made her choices. I made mine, and we both had to live with the outcomes. As I write this, 3 years have passed since that night I found the Rolex. 3 years since my world imploded. 3 years of rebuilding, healing, and moving forward. I'm not the same person I was then. I'm harder, more cautious, but also stronger. I know what I'm capable of, both in terms of love and in terms of protecting myself. Would I do things differently if I could go back? Maybe. The public humiliation at the dinner party was brutal, perhaps unnecessarily so. But it also served a purpose. It prevented Sharon from controlling the narrative, from painting herself as the victim. Everyone who mattered knew the truth, and that truth protected me during the divorce proceedings and beyond. The offshore account? No regrets there. It was my inheritance, my grandfather's legacy to me. Keeping it separate was pragmatic, not vindictive. It ensured my children's future, their college funds, their security. Sharon's choices didn't entitle her to that. The revelation to Kristian's girlfriend? Also no regrets. She deserved to know, just as I had deserved to know. Breaking that cycle of deception felt right, even if it was an indirect form of revenge against Kristian. Emma asked me recently if I thought I'd ever get married again. I told her maybe, someday, if I found someone worth taking that risk for. She smiled and said, "I think you already have." She was talking about Melissa, and maybe she was right. But marriage feels like a distant concept now, something that belongs to the naive version of me who believed in forever and unconditional trust. The current version knows better. Knows that people are capable of unimaginable betrayal even when they claim to love you. Knows that vigilance is the price of peace. Sharon will spend the rest of her life living with her choices. She'll raise Liam alone, work long hours to make ends meet, watch from the sidelines as Emma and Ethan build their lives primarily around me, and, increasingly, around Melissa. She'll attend events, but always feel like an outsider. She'll see what she could have had every time she picks up the kids for her every other weekend visits. And I'll continue building my life. Not as revenge, not as a statement, but because that's what survivors do. We pick up the pieces, we move forward, we find happiness despite the scars. Is this story a warning? Aconshonaritae? Maybe. Or maybe it's just the truth about what happens when trust is broken, when vows are violated, when someone chooses temporary excitement over lasting commitment. Sharon chose Kristian over me, over our family, over 15 years of shared history. And she lost everything. Not because I was cruel, but because actions have consequences. Real, lasting, life-altering consequences. That's the real story here. Not the drama, not the revenge, but the aftermath. The slow, grinding reality of living with choices you can't undo. The permanent alteration of multiple lives because of 8 months of selfishness. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about that Rolex watch, the catalyst for everything that followed. Does she regret accepting it? Does she wish she had hidden it better? Or does she wish she had never met Kristian at all? I'll never know. And honestly, I don't need to. Her thoughts, her regrets, her wishes, they're no longer my concern. I've moved on. I've healed. I've built something better. And that, ultimately, is the best revenge of all. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel. So subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video, there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.